The Krell had considered Earth a convenient dumping ground. When their experimental warship Void Render suffered catastrophic fusion core failure in the Sol system, they simply jettisoned it toward the third planet and moved on. In their 3,000-year history of space conquest, the Krell had never encountered a species that could reverse engineer their technology. Primitive humans, they assumed, would worship the massive hull as it burned across their sky, perhaps build temples around its crater. They were mistaken. Dr. Hazel Chen stood in the cavernous interior of what had once been the alien vessel's primary weapons bay. 5 years had passed since the ship crashed into the Gobi Desert, and in that time, humanity had transformed from observers to architects of their own defense. The wreckage that should have been incomprehensible had become humanity's greatest classroom. "Run the diagnostic again," Hazel called out, her voice echoing through the retrofitted chamber. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical bun, and her eyes, sharp and relentless, studied the holographic displays floating before her. At 34, she had become the youngest chief engineer of the United Earth Defense Initiative, and for good reason. While others saw alien symbols and impossible geometries, Hazel saw patterns, logic, and most importantly, potential. Across the chamber, Leo Martinez worked at a hybrid console half-human computer interface, half-salvaged Krell neural network. His fingers danced across both keyboard and the strange, gel-like surface that the aliens had used for ship control. "Running now," he said, his accent carrying hints of his childhood in New Mexico. "Fusion integration at 67%. We're still getting those resonance fluctuations in the tertiary coils, because we're not Krell," Hazel muttered, walking toward his station. Their biology interfaced directly with their ships. "We had to build the bridge from scratch." Leo glanced up at her, a slight smile crossing his weathered face. At 41, he had been a career military engineer before the ship arrived. Now he was something else entirely, part scientist, part warrior, wholly dedicated to ensuring humanity would never be caught defenseless again. "Remember when we thought the whole thing was just scrap metal? Jenkins wanted to cut it up and sell it for parts." Hazel laughed despite the tension. "Jenkins was an idiot. The moment I saw the molecular structure of the hull, I knew we were dealing with something beyond our entire periodic table." She pointed to one of the displays. "There, see that variance? The Krell fusion system operates on principles we're still discovering. But we don't need to understand everything, we just need it to work." That was the human way, Leo reflected. Throughout history, his species had excelled at taking things apart and putting them back together, often in ways their original creators never imagined. The Void Render had been designed as a planet killer, a ship meant to crack worlds from orbit. Humanity was remaking it into something else, a shield, a sword, and a very clear message to any species watching from the stars. "Hazel, you need to see this." Leo's tone had shifted from casual to urgent. She crossed to his station in 3 quick strides. On his screen, quantum signatures were appearing, hundreds of them, emerging from the darkness beyond Neptune's orbit. "Those are ships," she breathed. "Krell signatures. They're coming back," Leo confirmed, his jaw tight. "Intelligence estimated we had another decade. Guess they noticed their trash got repurposed." Hazel's mind raced through calculations, scenarios, possibilities. The retrofit wasn't complete. They had maybe 70% functionality, and some of the Void Render's original systems remained mysteries locked behind alien encryption they hadn't cracked. But 70% of a Krell planet killer was still more firepower than anything humanity had ever built on their own. "Get me a direct line to command," she ordered, "and start the power-up sequence. Full combat initialization." "Hazel, the fusion core isn't stable at full output. We could—" "I know the risks." "Leo," she met his eyes, "I also know what happens if we don't try." "How long until they reach Earth?" He checked the readings. "At their current velocity, 42 hours. Then we have 42 hours to finish 5 years of work." Hazel pulled up the master control interface, her fingers already flying across the controls. "Contact every engineer, every physicist, every technician who worked on this project. I don't care if they're sleeping, eating, or on vacation. Everyone reports to the Gobi facility within 6 hours. Around them, the massive ship began to hum. Lights that hadn't illuminated in eons flickered to life, first the cold blue of Krell technology, then the warm amber of human modifications. The marriage of two species engineering, born not of cooperation, but of humanity's stubborn refusal to remain victims. Leo initiated the communication protocols, but paused. You know what this means, right? If we fire this ship, if we actually use it in combat, we're not the primitive species anymore. We become players in whatever galactic politics exist out there. Hazel nodded slowly, understanding the weight of his words. The moment they pulled the trigger, humanity would cross a threshold. They would no longer be Earth's children, protected by obscurity and isolation. They would be a civilization that had taken another species' ultimate weapon and made it their own. The Krell made a choice when they dumped this ship on our planet, she said quietly. They thought we were too primitive, too stupid to matter. They're about to learn what humans do with their trash. Her voice hardened with determination. We recycle it, we repurpose it, and we make it better than it ever was. The fusion cores hummed deep into a resonant thrum that could be felt in the bones. On monitors throughout the facility, human and alien systems synchronized in a harmony that should have been impossible. Engineers had often joked that the ship ran on spite as much as fusion spite at being underestimated, spite at being considered disposable, spite at a universe that had looked at Earth and seen nothing worth preserving. 42 hours, Leo repeated, settling into his station with renewed focus. Let's make them count. Hazel looked up through the transparent aluminum dome they'd installed in the ship's command center. Beyond it, stars glittered beautiful, distant, and now hostile. Somewhere among them, the Krell were coming, expecting to find their discarded weapon as worthless debris. Instead, they would find humanity waiting. And humanity, as it had proven time and again throughout its violent, stubborn history, was very good at making weapons from whatever tools it was given, even alien trash.